Thank you. Good evening, this is BrassTacks and Zakka. Jacob. Today saw a stinging rebuttal by Prime Minister Narendra Modi to the logjam in Parliament over the Adani issue. In a speech that lasted an hour and 25 minutes, the Prime Minister tore into the opposition, listing out UPA-era scams from 2004 to 2014. He also said there was an entire ecosystem that was jubilant yesterday after an opposition leader's speech, an ecosystem which he says wants to see him and, by extension, India fail. The opposition is attacking the Prime Minister by saying his speech has not clarified anything on the issues raised by them. He did not mention the word Adani. But the moot question is, will these allegations of corruption, quote-unquote, stick personally on Narendra Modi? As elections in the past have shown, personal attacks and allegations of corruption on Mr. Modi have never really worked. Case in point being Rafale in 2019. So will Adani turn out to be the Rafale that happened in 2019, which was a non-story or a story that clearly did not work electorally for the opposition against Narendra Modi? Are they making the same mistake with Adani in 2024?
कुछ लोगों के भाषण के बाद पूरा इकोसिस्टम समर्थक उछल रहे थे और कुछ लोग तो खुश होकर के कह रहे थे ये हुई ना बात बड़ा, शायद नींद भी अच्छी आई होगी, शायद आज उठ भी नहीं पाए होंगे.
Prime Minister Modi wasted no time in attacking the opposition in his fiery reply to the motion of thanks on the President's address. He accused the opposition of being immersed in despair.
निराशा में डूबे हुए कुछ लोग इस देश की प्रगति को स्वीकार ही नहीं कर पा रहे हैं. उन्हें भारत के लोगों की उपलब्धियां नहीं दिखती है. देश में हर स्तर पर, हर क्षेत्र में, हर सोच में आशा ही आशा नजर आ रही है.
He called the 10 years when UPA was in power the decade of loss.
2014 के पहले का जो दशक था, द लॉस्ट डेकेड के रूप में जाना जाएगा. भारत के हर कोने में आतंकवादी हमलों का सिलसिला चलता रहा. 10 साल में भारत की आवाज ग्लोबल प्लेटफॉर्म पर इतनी कमजोर थी कि दुनिया सुनने तक तैयार नहीं. और यूपीए की पहचान बन गई. हर मौके को मुसीबत में पलट दिया. हर मौके को मुसीबत में पलट दिया.
He took a swipe at a divided opposition.
अगर भ्रष्टाचार की जांच हो रही है तो जांच एजेंसियों को गाली दो, लेकिन इन लोगों ने ईडी का धन्यवाद करना चाहिए कि ईडी के कारण ये लोग एक मंच पे आए हैं.
He even taunted the Congress's diminishing electoral fortune.
बीते वर्षों में हार्वर्ड में एक बहुत बढ़िया स्टडी हुई है, बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट स्टडी हुई है. और उस स्टडी है, उसका टॉपिक क्या था? स्टडी है द राइज एंड डिक्लाइन ऑफ इंडियाज कांग्रेस पार्टी. मुझे विश्वास है भविष्य में कांग्रेस की बर्बादी पर सिर्फ हार्वर्ड नहीं, बड़े बड़े विश्वविद्यालयों में अध्ययन होना ही होना है.
And finally, Prime Minister Modi declared that India's 140 crore people are his shield.
मोदी तो 25 करोड़ देशवासियों के परिवार का सदस्य है. 140 करोड़ देशवासियों के आशीर्वाद, ये मेरा सबसे बड़ा सुरक्षा कवच है. और गालियों के शस्त्र से, झूठ के शस्त्रास्त्रों से इस सुरक्षा कवच को कभी तुम भेद नहीं सकते हो.
The Prime Minister's thundering speech comes a day after Congress MP Rahul Gandhi questioned the government's so-called links with businessman Gautam Adani. Some portions of his speech were later expunged from the records, but he continued to target Prime Minister Modi over the issue.
हार्वर्ड यूनिवर्सिटी को स्टडी करनी चाहिए कि पॉलिटिक्स के बीच में और बिजनेस के बीच में कैसा रिश्ता होता है. इंडिया इज अ केस स्टडी.
With his combative 85-minute-long speech, has Prime Minister Modi sealed the opposition's fate in the 2024 Lok Sabha elections?
All right, the Adani storm in Parliament, the Prime Minister with a stinging almost 90-minute rebuttal. Let me now go across to our guests. Syed Zafar Islam of the BJP is joining us. Ami-Ben Yagnik is a Congress Member of Parliament and spokesperson. Shaukat Roy, TMC Member of Parliament. Dr. Nalan Mehta is the author of the book, The New BJP. He'll be joining us in a moment. And Rashid Kidwai, author and senior journalist, also on the broadcast. Ami-Ben Yagnik, let me start with you first. Are we seeing a similar script from 2019 play itself all over again? In 2019, it was Rafale. You know, these personal attacks, whether it is Chaukidar, Chor Hai, Chai Wala, Soot Boot Ki Sarkar. Repeatedly, Congress party has attacked the Prime Minister with these personal attacks, and repeatedly, they have all electorally backfired. Why should we not believe that the Adani personal attack that you're making on the Prime Minister in 2024 will see the same fate as Rafale saw in 2019?
Let's not go and talk about 2024 right now. A question pertinent was asked to the Honorable Prime Minister, and it was raised in the Parliament that what is this nexus with a businessman, and that was a question that was asked with a lot of proof, a lot of data, and especially when the common people's money is involved in certain companies and banks, and that has been given to a businessman. So that was the question simple that was asked. But today the Honorable Prime Minister neither acted as a leader, national leader of a stature, nor as a statesman, and gave a common speech which he gives at a rally, and just thought that, well, he would get away with the dramatics. Well, I felt very sad and disappointed that in everything, if he has to avoid giving answers, whether whatever topics you mentioned, I think this does not call that a Honorable Prime Minister would duck these kind of questions.
I want to be very specific tonight. I want to be very specific tonight, and I want to ask you.
I am very specific.
Yeah, I want to ask you once again. If you are alleging, the opposition and the Congress party is alleging that there was public collusion which led to public money being siphoned off, then put that proof in the public domain. You can take the matter to court. What is the public money that has been looted in this case? Please explain this to our viewers, because the only public money exposure to Adani stocks is less than 1% by LIC and less than 1% by SBI. And the leaders of both of those companies have come out and clarified about this exposure. There is no other public money in Adani. So where is the public corruption?
No, why should one particular company or a conglomerate or an individual shoot up from 609 of the ranking to a second number richest person in the world, and why that nexus comes only after 2014, and why the person is so friendly with the Prime Minister? Why can't we ask a question? And if it is so simple and so truthful, why is there not an answer? That is a simple question that was asked. Why beat about the bush and avoid?
Okay.
I think if a national leader is of this stature, he would come out and give some
Zafar Islam
explanation in the
respond to
open,
that. But
not
you know, the valuation of a businessman or a particular set of businesses going up has nothing to do with public collusion or public corruption. But anyway, Syed Zafar Islam, what the opposition is asking is that the Prime Minister spoke for more than an hour and 25 minutes. The first and most obvious question was, this entire budget session of Parliament has been held hostage to the Adani issue. The PM did not mention Adani even once. So he's not answering that specific charges against his government. Please respond, Zafar Islam.
Well, Zakka, you have to understand. You asked the Congress spokesperson and how the hollow response was. There was no meat in her argument. There was no content in her argument. And likewise, Rahul Gandhi made this kind of similar remarks, which has no basis and doesn't warrant any response from anyone. Forget about the Prime Minister. Prime Minister did expose the Congress party and how they are viewed by the people of this great country. And he also mentioned that the confidence of the people lies in the leadership, and the leadership of the current leadership of India, which is led by the Honorable Prime Minister. The government is led by the Prime Minister, and people have a lot of faith in him. Not only the people of India, but the entire globe. If you see people's confidence in India has gone up significantly. People's response, investment, everything about India has gone up significantly. Now they are talking about a company, a business house, which the owner of this, the promoter of their business, they also have business relationship with other states, including the states ruled by the Congress party. Yeah. A businessman's primary responsibility is to sniff opportunities, identify opportunities, and those who has the ability to identify opportunities and able to deliver it, here they are the one who makes money. I mean, it's a simple formula. Be it Adani or for that matter Ambani or Birla or anyone else.
Okay.
Everybody has grown because they could identify certain opportunity and they could cultivate it to their advantage.
Okay.
But let me tell you one thing which the Congress must understand. When they say, just a second, when they talk about the public institution, public money, they are absolutely clueless about the entire business profile of. I'm not the spokesperson. But as a financial market, somebody who has been exposed to financial market for 22 years, and do understand many things which Congress spokesperson has not been able to speak about it. When out of the entire the liability this company has, 65% of the liability or debt is being raised from the overseas market, overseas capital market, overseas banking consortium, and where Indian bank has no role, Indian capital market has no role, but yet the money is coming from the global players. Global market,
so let's be very clear about this tonight. You know, basis this Hindenburg report or whatever other details have been put out in the public domain. If there is collusion or shell companies or whatever the allegations are, that is between the investors of these said companies and the management of those said companies. The public money involved therein is only the less than 1% by SBI and less than 1% by LIC. But let me go to, more than integrities. Let me go to the political aspect, and I want to ask Professor Shogato Roy this. Professor Shogato Roy, Zafar, I'll come back to you, please. I'll circle back to you. So, Professor Shogato Roy, what the Prime Minister said today is that there is an entire ecosystem which was jubilant after yesterday. He, of course, did not mention Rahul Gandhi by name. And he said there was much jubilation after a certain opposition leader spoke. But we saw what happened in election after election after all of these jibes, whether it was Rafale, whether it was Chaukidar Chor Hai, whether it is Soot Boot Ki Sarkar. The Congress party, and I have the data here, the Congress party since 2014 in states that it was in power in has lost 7 since 2014, and the BJP in that same corresponding period has won 16. So isn't this proof that whatever these allegations are, it's not sticking?
Yeah. If you're talking about the past, I'm not discussing the past because everybody knows the election results that have taken place since 2019. BJP did very well. Maybe the Congress slogans fell flat. But the discussion today is about what's going on in Parliament. There have been multiple allegations against the Adani group of companies and Adani's close relationship with Narendra Modi. Rahul Gandhi raised this question in Parliament. Now the Prime Minister did not reply to any of the allegations at all. How a company which was 609th on the list in few years of NDA rule, Narendra Modi's rule, could come up to be the second biggest, richest company. How this happened? This is the question that was posed. The political industrialist nexus was basically questioned by Rahul Gandhi. I do not belong to Mr. Rahul Gandhi's party, but as an interested citizen and a political worker, I do feel that the government owes an answer. Narendra Modi did not answer any question. He only referred to his victories in the past, the allegations made by Congress in the past. But in the current scenario, when the Adani Group has lost 10 lakh crores in the fall of share prices of the company.
Okay.
When it has been pointed out that Adani Group got 36,000 crores from LIC and 27,000 crores from State Bank. And where Rahul Gandhi pointed out that after certain foreign visits of the Prime Minister, Adani lined up projects in those countries. These questions need to be answered.
But Professor Roy,
no
can I make a 10-second intervention? Can I make a 10-second
past.
intervention? This whole thing about politico-industrialist
Please.
nexus, just by showing pictures of Mr. Modi with Mr. Adani, I mean, there are pictures of Mamata Banerjee with Mr. Adani. In fact, he was one of the guests of honor for the Invest Bengal summit that happened some time back. But nobody is making any allegation that, there's politico-industrialist nexus in Bengal.
Why not? You see, the point is the Adanis have done very well. They have risen very rapidly. And their rapid rise is attributed to the proximity he has had with Narendra Modi. Now, Mamata Banerjee wants investments in his state. So does many other chief ministers. And Adani, till the point when Hindenburg research report came out, was riding on top. He had a lot of capital to invest. So naturally, Mamata Banerjee and many others wanted Adani to invest in their state. There was nothing wrong. What seems to be wrong is the rapid rise of Adani because of his proximity to Narendra Modi.
Okay.
And the other thing mentioned in the Hindenburg research report, that is Adani bought up companies with round tripping, sending money from here to abroad and bringing it back and buying up companies in India.
Okay.
So that he acquired monopoly interest in certain industries like airports.
Those are allegations raised by that research report. It is up to SEBI to go into the bottom of that. But I want to ask, I want to stick to the politics of what happened between yesterday and today in Parliament. So let me ask Dr. Nalan Mehta. Let me ask Dr. Nalan Mehta, and Rashid Kidwai have also been patiently waiting. So Dr. Nalan Mehta, it comes down to, is this going to be the narrative between now and 2024? I think given the amount of parliamentary time that has been, consumed by this issue, the entire opposition seems to be rallying around this issue, much like they did around Rafale before 2019. Do you believe that this might potentially be more damaging to the BJP, or, as we have seen in the past, these allegations of corruption do not stick against Mr. Narendra Modi? It's almost like he's Mr. Teflon. It doesn't stick. Or is this time different? That's what the opposition seems to think.
So I think, Zakka, what we are seeing is an early trailer of the template for the big battle line before 2024. We've seen a very combative Rahul Gandhi in Parliament earlier. And we've seen Mr. Modi being very aggressive, being offensive in defense. I think it was a very confident Prime Minister responding to the charges today. He started with the whole thing around compulsive criticism, and what he called compulsive criticism versus constructive criticism and so on. And I think what we've seen here, the template, Mr. Modi is essentially laying down the gauntlet. He's using, you use the word Teflon for the Modi imagery. He's basically saying, it's my credibility versus theirs. Who do you believe? I have a track record. Do you believe me or do you believe them? And in this case, the opposition. And he's basically laid out his report card on social welfare as well. And that gives you an indication of what he's going to 2024 with. He's saying, look, I did this for the poor. The poor, I have an image with the poor. Now you decide whether you believe these guys or whether you believe me. And he was very specific, even though he did not name Adani. And I think that we are just seeing the first act of this play. He's waited for the Adani, for the eye of the storm to pass. And now he's come out responding fairly aggressively. He's not named Adani at all, but he responded to specific allegations first he called them baseless, but then on the question of foreign contracts and all of that, he talked about whether you accuse us of being strong or you accuse us of being weak. So I think we've seen Mr. Modi essentially batting using brand Modi and saying and he's essentially making it an issue of a class war as well.
No, so that's what I want to ask Rashid Kidwai. So when you have these two sort of imageries posited before the people of India, all right, let's talk about corruption. And he has said, look at the 2004 to 2014 decade. And we've all, been there, covered those stories, the whole India against corruption. He's again sort of put out the entire laundry list from 2G to CWG to the other scams that happened during UPA era. And that brought down the downfall of UPA era. When those same actors and when those same players are now accusing Modi of collusion and corruption, he's telling the people of India, you choose. You choose who do you think is more corrupt or less corrupt. I mean, when this is the choice that is posited before the people of India, then Rashid Kidwai, does the opposition have a choice, have a chance?
Yeah, so Zakka, this I find it very fascinating as well as rather intriguing. Why should a prime minister of a country who enjoys such a huge popularity and who's there's a single party majority government, etc., is putting his prestige at stake for a private business house? The allegations are in the realm of accusation, as you rightly saying. I'm not even going in the merit of it, but this kind of identifying with it is something that I find it little, out of place. And particularly when we talk about Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the kind of mandate he got, the kind of promises he made, the kind of corruption you're rightly pointing out. But Zakka, those 11, 12 cases that Mr. Modi and the BJP had highlighted, how many UPA ministers, were sent to jail? What is the progress report? What about all those people who fled? Have they come back? So there are a lot of questions are there. And one last point, of course, Mr. Modi and the BJP is sitting very pretty, but we must always remember what happened to Rajiv Gandhi. He had a huge mandate, huge mandate in 1984. And what happened? He just fretted it away. And I remember at that time when Bofort's initial days came, he thought that, nothing can happen. He was just clean.
Okay.
The BJP, just one last thing. The BJP has always been very good at throughout, Narasimha Rao government, throughout Rajiv Gandhi government, they kept, hurling all kind of allegations of financial wrong, kept demanding JPC, kept demanding all kind of things. And today they said, no, there is no need for it. So all these things are little baffling, little out of place, as I said.
No, so the opposition wanting this to be Mr. Modi's Bofors moment, I think we saw that play out in 2019 as well with the whole Rafale allegations. It did not stick either in the court of public opinion as elections in 2019 showed. Neither did it stick in the Supreme Court. But be that as it may, Amiben Yagnik, the other thing that Mr. Modi has said today in his speech, and this has been again a recurrent theme when it is opposition versus government, is by all estimates, whether it is IMF, World Bank, you take any of the world indices, everyone is saying India is progressing, India is the fastest growing economy. And Mr. Modi, whether you like it or not, is positing India's success as he playing a role in India's success. And he has posited you guys in the opposition as always, in a negative mindset and always, wanting to bring the country down. And of course, the alleged corruption that happened in the lost decade, as he put it. Now, the people of India are looking at this and saying, well, the opposition is constantly only, saying negative things. They're only trying to pull down. By trying to pull down Modi, they're also wittingly or unwittingly pulling down the India story. And the opposition, sadly, from 2019 has not been able to make that distinction or make that distinction in the public domain that the India story is different and attacking Modi is different. Because he has conflated both. And you're not able to separate both.
That is the way you put the question. History shows what 2004 to 2014 was. It will be a golden period. We had the liberalization fruits. The present Prime Minister is piggyback riding on these privatization, liberalization results, and that is why he can build his whatever progress on this already settled building, I would say. But so you just don't bring India and the Prime Minister. When you are in public office, holding public office, if there are allegations, I think if you are clean and clear, you should come out with your reply. But to duck it, and then we talk about democracy and rule of law in this country, I think an answer was expected and the answer should have been given. But to talk about something that was in the past and everything that has been tried in court,
all I'm asking you is,
JPC,
what are you doing?
Why is the present Prime Minister, where is the Prime Minister running away from the JPC?
What are you doing to separate or drive that wedge between Mr. Modi's success and the India story? Because he has fused both of it together. And he is saying people are looking at the opposition as, sometimes, always giving negative criticism and always pulling down the India story, when all world indices are showing that India is progressing as the fastest growing economy. He has fused both.
Yes,
you are somehow not able to separate it.
India is India, and the Prime Minister is the Prime Minister of India. So he may bring it together, but we look at it differently. The world also looks at it differently. Today also the world is looking at this issue.
Okay.
And the world knows that where India fares on which index, whether it's the hunger index or the gender index or whatever index, the world is watching.
Okay. So let me go back to Zafar Islam. Zafar Islam, Rashid is right. When BJP was in opposition, you wanted JPC for 2G. It started all the way from Bofors, by the way. They wanted JPC for Bofors, JPC for 2G, and you got it. And hours and hours of parliamentary time got lost because the demand was not acceded to. Today, the budget session of Parliament, for all practical purposes, at least the last few days, has been held hostage to this one issue, and the opposition wants a JPC. Now that the Prime Minister has spoken, Rahul Gandhi has spoken, can we expect a JPC without the announcement of the JPC? Will you be able to retrieve the Parliament session? How do you intend to make the House run now?
Well, Zakka, if you just do a backtesting, you will realize that the entire approach of the opposition bench is always to disrupt the parliament. They do not have a constructive approach. They do not want business to be transacted in the House. They do not want bills to be introduced, bills to be debated, discussed and passed. They do not want laws to be enacted there. Because that is what they have demonstrated in the last few sessions of the parliament, previous sessions of the parliament, because the only thing they would want to showcase the world, and particularly their constituencies, that they are disrupting the parliament, and they want to be seen on the television that they are actually not letting the government function the parliament. So it is not only the government, it is also the responsibility of opposition parties that they need to behave responsibly, because people have elected them for them to make law, to represent their issues in the parliament, get the law made so that it can be served for the people. But unfortunately, what is being served here is their personal interests, and they do not have any interest in the people and their grievances and their expectations.
No, so let me ask Professor Shilata Roy this. All of last week, Professor Roy, all of last week we saw, the opposition strategy of holding Parliament hostage to this one issue. Session after session was getting disrupted. Now, you allowed the debate to happen, and we've got, a fairly constructive debate over the last couple of days. Isn't it better off, even for the opposition, if the point is to, put the government on the mat, then allow the business of the House to happen, allow the House to function, rather than hold, one issue and make that issue sort of hold Parliament hostage? The difference between the strategy adopted last week and this week, it's apparent to everyone.
No, originally we wanted to raise our protest against the Adani Gate, as it is called. Then we talked among ourselves and we thought that we should let the parliamentary debate start. Yesterday the debate has started. Rahul Gandhi spoke yesterday. Today the Prime Minister has replied. The debate on the budget has also taken place. The parliament for this session is going to be over in 2 days and it will run peacefully. We have no objection to parliament being run. But when the government stonewalls all inquiry, they do not give any replies to the allegations raised by the opposition, then opposition sometimes has no way but to really protest. But I heard there some pontification by the BJP spokesman. Have they forgotten how many days? One whole winter session was wiped out because of the demand for JPC on 2G. Before that, one session was wiped out because of their opposition, BJP's demand for JPC on Bofors. In both cases, the government ultimately wilted. So here also opposition feels that if they can hold on long enough, then government may agree to have a JPC on Adani's, because Adani's is just not one industry. It is one industry getting monopoly in many fields, suddenly becoming very rich, one industry having proximity to the Prime Minister. All these matters need to be investigated.
Okay. Zafar, quickly respond. I asked this as well. When you were in opposition, asking for JPC was kosher, but when you're in government, asking for JPC is not. Zafar.
Yes.
No, today, no, Zakka, that is what I wanted to point out, that today it is JPC, earlier something else, prior to that other session something else. So every session of the parliament, they have something or the other. Their irresponsible behavior is something which is being demonstrated by the opposition bench.
Okay.
Unless they are also constructive and they understand their responsibility as the legislators, they cannot do justice to their existence.
So let me go back to Nalin Mehta and Rashid, and I'll wrap up after that. Nalin Mehta, it comes. So look, again, I keep coming back to this point. The valuation of a particular industrialist or his group of companies going from X to 5X or 10X, that is a consequence of market forces. If you were to show that there was public collusion between authorities and government and this particular industrialist, which led to that valuation going up, that is the order of the allegations would be of a different nature altogether if that were to be placed in the public domain. Again, look at the stock itself. I mean, it lost 50-60% of its value over the last 10 days, maybe about 2 weeks or so. But in the last 3 or 4 days, it's climbed back up another 15%. This is market, upar niche. It is controlled by market forces. There is no governmental collusion one way or the other. Do you think that short of the opposition either placing in court or in the public domain in some fashion, collusion between governmental authorities and this particular set of companies, this issue will not have legs to run, that it will get over, it will be off the news cycle, it will be off the front pages in a few weeks?
So I think, look, I'm not going to. I think I'll stay away from the specifics of the financial issues. But on let me comment on the political communications here and the political power play here. I think, firstly, Mr. Modi has chosen a time to respond to this when the shares have bounced back. So some of the sting of the allegations of Adani and the political impact of that, I think this is a far better time for him to respond to this than 4 or 5 days ago. That's one. Second, I think following the disaster of the FPO and Adani's response on returning the money and so on, talking about moral high ground and all of that, irrespective of the allegations, both and the responses to them and all that was said, because the money was that 20,000 crore or so, which was roughly returned. See, LIC and the banks, their exposure is less than 1%. Had there been a massive loss to individual citizens from these investments, the political sting would have been much higher. Because that has not happened significantly, I think Mr. Modi has calculated here, and he's coming out very aggressively on this, that much of the political sting is now behind him. And I think that's the early template that you're going to be seeing now in his response. We are seeing a very aggressive Prime Minister in his response, and he's waited. He's waited. Other ministers have spoken so far, and now he's come out.
Okay, Rashid, I'll give you the final word. Again, is the opposition making a mistake by choosing an issue like quote-unquote corruption to be the front and center piece to take on Mr. Modi, as opposed to, let's say, other issues on which his government might actually be on a weak footing, whether it is unemployment or whether it is price rise? Because on the corruption issue, and I keep going back to this, here he has posited this in the court of public opinion. It's his credibility versus that of people from the UPA. And in that, I think it's almost like a no contest.
I think
absolutely. So I think Zakka, as long as the Narendra Modi government, the BJP was on that part of the India story where there were a lot of diplomatic, military, economic successes were attributed to the Prime Minister and of course the welfareism. Suddenly now we see some kind of shift, and that I find it politically rather disturbing, that is being linked to a particular individual or particular business house. So this is something I think the opposition senses a kind of opportunity. Whether they succeed or not, we do not know. So we'll get to know. But at this point of time, this is, I think, a shift on the part of the, BJP strategy, and this is something, it will have its own consequences.
No, I'm saying, last 30 seconds, what resonance does it have to the daily life of a common man or woman? I mean, for the investors of that particular company, yes, that's between them and that company. But how many people would have been invested? I mean, less than about 5% invest in the stock markets anyway.
It's not a question of investment. Out of 10, 6, 7 people would, attribute, India's success story to Mr. Narendra Modi. But would they do the same thing to another individual? I have my doubts.
Okay, all right. We'll see how this story plays out. But like I said, Parliament will be very, very keenly following how things are going to develop there. The JPC demand is still very much front and center. The government, I don't think, is in any mood to concede to that demand. The Prime Minister, particularly after today's attack, has thrown the gauntlet back at the opposition and said, all right, if it is the issue of corruption that you want to make front and center for 2024, or at least in the run-up to it, then bring it on. Because he's putting himself out there and saying that the people of India have voted for him twice now and the BJP in multiple state assembly elections on the basis of his credibility. And he's positing that against the 10 years of the UPA, which he called the lost decade, precisely on those corruption issues that flared up at that time. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, right on the other side, could a balloon, how could it blow up and play any role in the reset of US-China ties? Remember, this was coming at a time when Xi Jinping and Joe Biden had met. There was a hope that things could be plugged back from the disastrous last few years, but now a balloon seems to have blown up any of that hope. We'll have details right on the other side.